Hola y bienvenidos a este video en el que vamos a aprender a hablar de diferentes tipos de transporte en español. Hello and welcome to this video in which we're going to learn to talk about different types of transport in Spanish. Now in English we say I go by bus, I go by car, I go by train. In Spanish that's going to work a little bit differently. So let's take a look. Now before we jump right in and start learning new words for modes of transport, really we want to be able to put these later into a sentence, because just saying train, bus, bike is not very helpful if we don't know how to say that we go by train or he goes by bike. So we need to know our verb to go, ir, in the 6 forms of the present tense. So I go is voy, you go vas, he goes, she goes va, which we'd also use with the singular they. We go vamos, you plural go vais, and they go van. Remember the V in Spanish is pronounced like a B, so it's not voy and van, it's boy and van. Now hopefully this is just a recap. If you've never seen these before, I recommend you check out my other videos where I talk about the present tense, I talk about the verb to go in the present tense. And if you have seen AR verbs in the present tense before, you should recognize that though this is an irregular verb, the endings do actually follow that pattern of o, as, a, amos, ais, an. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. Now in order to say how you travel to places in Spanish, our formula is going to be one of those 6 forms of the verb to go, plus the preposition en, plus a mode of transport. So if we stick for now with I go, so we can at least talk in the first person about modes of transport, I could say voy en coche, voy en coche, I go by car. So in English we say by car, by plane, by train. In Spanish, that by, that preposition, is always going to be en, en. So it's quite simple. The only exception, the only thing you need to be aware of is if you're going on foot, the same as we say on foot rather than by foot, similar exception I guess, we'd say voy a pie. So not voy en pie, but voy a pie. Voy en coche, I go by car. Voy a pie, I go on foot. Now if you want to get a piece of paper and a pen handy, you can write down these modes of transport as we go through. Voy en coche, we've already talked about, I go by car. In Latin America it's more commonly referred to as carro, so you might hear both. Voy en coche, voy en carro. Voy en autocar. Voy en autocar, I go by coach. Now this can be a bit confusing because coche looks a bit like coach, sounds a bit like coach, but it means car. Autocar has the word car in it, but it means coach. So one thing you can remember is just that they're the other way around. The one that has car is coach, the one that looks like coach is car. I found that works really well for my students. Voy en tren is I go by train, and it's a word that's a cognate. It's very similar to the English spelling and the English sound, but be careful not to say it like the English. It's not voy en tren, it's voy en tren. I go by boat is voy en barco. Voy en barco. Just the other day a student said to me, when you say en barco, it sounds like embark, which is a really useful way to remember this. You embark on a trip, you embark on a voyage, voy en barco. To go by motorbike, we'd say voy en motocicleta, or we could shorten this to voy en moto. In Spain, instead of motocicleta, they'd pronounce it motocicleta. But again, people tend to shorten this to moto. It's just a lot quicker. Voy en moto, same as I go by bike instead of by motorbike. If you're going by bicycle, voy en bicicleta, I go by bicycle. And again, just as we shorten the word bicycle to bike, I go by bike, you can do that in Spanish. Voy en bici, or voy en bici in Spain. Bicicleta, bicicleta, bici, bici. Voy en bici. To go by plane, you can say voy en avión. Voy de vacaciones en avión. I go on holiday by plane. Voy a España en avión. I go to Spain by plane. This one, probably the most difficult one to remember. Voy en taxi. Okay, pretty much an international word, this one. Voy en taxi. Now not many people use this as a common mode of transport, but some people do. Voy en helicóptero. We might use this to talk about other people. El presidente va en helicóptero. The president goes by helicopter. And finally we've got our exception again. Voy a pie, I go on foot. If you're an English speaker, when your brain sees that word, it probably wants to say pie, because it literally is the word pie in English. But as you may have noticed, it's pronounced very, very differently in Spanish. I think the best tip I can give you is say it like you're saying the word, the letters, P-A. Pie. Pie. Voy a pie. Okay, slightly different, but that will get you 99% of the way towards perfect pronunciation of that word. Voy a pie. And now we've recapped the verb to go, which was voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. We've talked about our modes of transport, so we should, in theory, be able to put a sentence together now. So after the word to go, or I go, or whichever form of the verb we're using, we need to say where we're going to, which would be a. A means to, when we're going to a place. Voy a, I go to, I'm going to. And if we're saying a noun which is feminine, a place name which is feminine, we need to say a la, I go to the. For example, if I was going to the beach, voy a la playa. Now if I want a masculine noun for the place which is my destination, like colegio, school, or trabajo, work, you may think I want to say a el, because if it's a la, why wouldn't it be a el? Well, in Spanish, when you've got a followed by el, this just becomes one word, al. So I can either say voy a la or voy al. So if I want to say I go to school, voy al colegio. I go to the beach, voy a la playa. Then I need my preposition en, and then the mode of transport. So if I want to say I go to the beach by car, voy a la playa en coche. If I want to say I go to school on foot, then remember that exception, voy al colegio a pie. And now to practice all of this, I'd like you to try and have a go. So here I've given you a sentence builder to make this really easy, so you can try translating a few sentences first, then maybe making some of your own. On the left you've got voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van, the 6 forms of the verb to go. Then you've got to the, or to, depending on whether it's followed by a feminine or a masculine word, the preposition for en, and then the modes of transport that we've looked at today. So first I'd like you to try and translate the phrase, I go to school by bicycle. I go to school by bicycle. You can either write this down on a piece of paper or in your Spanish book if you have one, or just pause the video and try saying it a few times in Spanish. So for this you should have voy al colegio en bicicleta. Voy al colegio en bicicleta, which we can shorten to voy al colegio en bici. Now another one for you. We go to the airport by taxi. So you should have vamos al aeropuerto en taxi. And last one, he goes to work by car. He goes to work by car. Pause the video. Va al trabajo en coche. Va al trabajo en coche. Now that's the end of what I wanted to go through with you today. Hopefully that gives you a way of talking about all sorts of different people going to all sorts of different places in all sorts of different popular modes of transport, and some less popular ones like helicóptero. Before you go away and do something else, consider just pausing the video and writing 10, 15 different sentences in Spanish to practice this. And you can always add some extra details as well. Just a quick reminder to hit that like button if you found this video useful, if you found it interesting. It's just a click of a button or a tap of the screen for you, but it really means a lot to me and it helps me to know which videos people have found most useful as well. Also, if you have any comments, please do use the comment function below. You can say something that you learned, something that you found a bit difficult, and again, it will help me to plan future videos. And if you haven't already done so, please do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the future videos that I'll be posting. If you really don't want to miss out on any of them, you can also turn on notifications.